But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind is the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And, well, it's been a fucking week, hasn't it? Well, before we got started, I'm very big into skill sharing, and I learned a very valuable kitchen-related tip that I want to pass on to all of you. I was making a chorrillana tonight, my own version of it, and actually really quite proud of how well I was managing all the oil splatter and butter splatter that is involved in that process. But see, here's the tip. See, it is quite useful to add ice cubes to frying oil to cool it down. However, as I learned tonight, you should not do it immediately after you take it off of the cooker. You see, the sweet spot for frying potatoes to make chips is about 180 C, or about 365 Fahrenheit. And normally I usually just kind of think of putting the ice cubes in after either after I've eaten or it's like 10 minutes later or something like that. And it turns out that's really the way to go, because when you put them in immediately into 360 degree oil, what you get is a big fucking boiling oil geyser, just spraying plumes of boiling oil in all directions. And the best possible outcome at that point is that you're going to be cleaning oil off of everything, like just literally every single fucking surface that is anywhere near it. I say that's the best possible scenario, because the other scenario is you get hit, which I narrowly avoided a couple of times. It was a novel experience for me, but a valuable lesson was learned. You should definitely wait for the oil to cool down a bit before you help it along with ice cubes, unless you want a boiling oil geyser in the middle of your kitchen, spraying boiling oil in all directions, including your direction. Because that's what happened. I was so happy about how neat I'd kept everything, because that's not easy when you're frying and sauteing, especially not when you're doing that at the same time. Stuff splatters, it's just in the nature of the oil when it's at that kind of a temperature. But it was all really great, and then I put the ice cubes into the oil early, and boiling oil geyser. Yeah, so that's the evening I've just been having. Actually, there's still some stuff I need to get fucking oil off of. But a valuable lesson has been learned. Bonsoir, Adria. So, I think I've got some interesting bullshit for tonight. It occurred to me that Joe Rogan has been like a malevolent but asinine presence always just sort of off to the margin of the stream, never actually looked at directly. And it occurred to me maybe to actually watch some Joe Rogan on here. I've also got ProPublica published this Project 2025 private training video on left-wing code words and language, and I have a feeling that could be interesting. Then there's an interview with the man who honestly has lost the most from Elon Musk, because he used to be the most divorced man, and then Elon Musk just fucking stole his crown. Graham Linehan, the guy who decided, after some very mild criticism of one episode of one of his beloved sitcoms, to just go all in on being a professional hater of trans people. He's giving an interview on the current comedy landscape and the impact of cancel culture. The impact being, among other things, that when he published a fucking book, it sold like 300 copies. Which is impressive. The list of books that sold more copies than that is... and none of them are things you've heard of. Then we've got some Muppet, the innovationist turn, why the CPI never seeks a place within communism. And I accidentally happened upon a new name for the CPI. I was talking on Facebook with some comrades about, the debate about, is what's going on, is that like fascism, is that moving in the direction of fascism? Does it matter whether it strictly fits the most technical definitions or not, and stuff like that? And I had remarked that the Democrats and the Republicans, by their combined powers, form the Mighty Morphin Hitler Rangers. And one comrade looked at that and tells me he misread it initially. His brain saw the Mighty Moppin Hitler Rangers. And, I mean, that's the CPI's name now. They're the Mighty Moppin Hitler Rangers. We've also got the Young Turfs. This is how tyranny begins. So clearly the idea of like sucking up to white nationalists working out fine for them. I mean, clearly lots of they're so welcoming and everything. They patted, Elon Musk patted Cenk Uygur on the head on Twitter. You have to understand. So we got the Young Turfs talking about how tyranny begins. We've got Hakeem Jeffries talking about how they just kind of hope maybe the Republicans get sick of winning. Any particular preferences? I'm kind of interested. I've got Joe Rogan interviewing Mike Rowe, which ought to be a hot mess. Or Joe Rogan on LGBTQ brainwashing. And either of those, they would be a hot oil geyser of bullshit. So I'm kind of curious about both of them. Actually, why don't we start out with Joe Rogan? This is from Asmongold TV as well. So I mean, it's like a layered, all sorts of different shitheads coming together on this video, and I think we're gonna check this out. Obviously, all the fucking content warnings, judging from this title.
Our president.
Yes, we've got just all the shitty people in one place here. Let me just, where's my... Gotta get my chat where I can see it when I full screen the video.
Is very smart. He's showing us things that enables people like Mike Benz and you and I to have these conversations.
Wait, who is? I missed who's very smart. I think that's important.
Our president is very smart. He's showing us
oh,
things
God.
that enables people like Mike Benz and you and I to have these conversations about, because it's not... ideological that USAID, which is not USAID, this is like one of these psyops right up top. Like,
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, here's, of course, the thing is, I mean, USAID does suck. And even the good things they do, they use as blackmail against countries that are in the global south in order to get them to just sort of hand over all their resources and keep the minimum wage down to practically nothing.
Federal Express is not owned by the government. Federal Reserve.
Wow. Federal Express isn't run by the government?
Reserve is not owned by the government.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that one is. And the people who really get deep into that Federal Reserve shit, the fucked up thing about it, they talk about it like what they don't like is that it's, you know, the private aspect of it. But the thing they want to replace it with, if you look at what the banking system was before the Federal Reserve, it was literally 100% private. It was just individual banks with no coordination issuing banknotes that might or might not have been worth anything from one day to the next, and there were major economic crises every 5 years. Yeah, sounds like a great system to get it back to.
USAID is the Agency for International Development, not aid. And we see on television.
Wow, he just figured that out.
Another pallet onto the C-130. Aid, U.S. aid from the American people.
Oh, we're being nice.
Yeah, we're being nice.
Oh, wow. We should be nice. We're the nice
Wow.
people of the world.
But
Like, is Asmongold just going to sort of stare gormlessly at this?
what these, and I'm sure Mike talked about this, you know, like LGBTQ, these dance parties and things. If you look at these countries, like these are countries where we want to keep them away from Russia, overthrow the incumbent, and the way to garner support.
Well, no, not necessarily. First of all, not so much keep them away from Russia. It's more keep them away from China. Like, Russia is not really doing a whole lot in terms of, like, you know, development aid or something. That's like, it's China that's the competitor there. And the thing is, China is actually, as it's interesting, it's been admitted by like top politicians who, like, usually there's this patina of humanitarianism on it, but they've sort of admitted. I mean, I've heard like Jamie Raskin, who was a major recipient of money from the pro-Israel lobby, it turns out. Was his major source of campaign funding in 2022. Was talking about how it prevents these cuts for USAID. They are preventing the U.S. from competing with the Belt and Road Initiative. And the thing is, the U.S. wasn't competing well with that anyway, because the whole reason that has taken off is because they're offering a better deal than the U.S., which doesn't take much, because the deal the U.S. offers sucks, actually. And for the most part, you don't end up with anything durable or lasting that will be there, regardless of whether you actually continue the relationship. Like, the U.S. already wasn't really competing because it really isn't hard to offer better terms than the U.S. offers. If the U.S. weren't there, they would be offering worse terms, almost certainly. They are very much undercutting the U.S., but it's not Russia that they're worried about, it's China.
And I really love how they added the Q. That just became so clear to me all of a sudden.
Ooh, wow, we get to find out. Well, look at Asmongold. I mean, he's just like, is he okay? If
you sponsor LGBTQ, these are outcasts. These are people who feel that they've been marginalized.
Well, they feel that they've been marginalized. Yes, feel that they've been marginalized.
Sure.
Then you add a Q, like...
Well, I mean, to be fair, in a lot of these other countries, they are legitimately marginalized.
I mean, they are here, too, actually. I mean, especially right now, actually.
Like, it's, in the U.S., we forget about this, but in a lot of countries, like...
Yeah, it's so great in the U.S. right now for queer people.
You actually are marginalized if you're gay, right? And not even to mention trans.
I mean, because it's so nice that problem has been so completely solved in the U.S. Like, there isn't even a fucking the Civil Rights Act doesn't even include queer people.
Queer, I'm different, I'm odd. You bring more people in.
That's not what it means. Does he actually think that queer in this case means odd?
Bring the anarchists in.
You can get A.
They think the A in LGBTQIA stands for anarchists. I mean,
They have the A's in
Oh yeah,
now,
the
which
A's,
is
the
so
I's,
crazy.
everything.
But the A's don't even
Intersex.
have a dog in the fight.
But that's the point. You want them to come to the
Everybody,
party.
yes.
Come to the party. You're allowed to the party.
That's
and
why
they-
it's so long now.
And I saw this, AFD in Germany.
first of all, who is this guy? I mean, he looks familiar to me, but I'm realizing he looks familiar because my brain is noticing that he looks a lot like Jon Stewart, but he clearly isn't him.
This is the extreme right party, and
Well, I mean, they are. Like, they literally are. They're fucking Holocaust deniers. They're neo-Nazis.
wanted, to slow or remove immigration, and
Not to slow it, they literally... The thing is, they call it Remigration. They want mass deportations. And they have this concept in Germany called the firewall, die Brandmauer, where supposedly all the, non-fascist parties have they have this general agreement that they will not work together in any way with, neo-Nazis. But that does not extend to not plagiarizing their ideas and just running with them, which is exactly what's been going on. And it's been going on for a really long time. I mean, in the 1990s, see, they used to have a really... Okay, Article 16 of the German Constitution, one of the provisions of it deals with political asylum, the right to political asylum. And it used to be much better than it is now. Now there are all sorts of exceptions to it. Hey, River Rune. But, and the reason there are all these exceptions to it, you see, is that Nazis were demanding exceptions to the to Article 16's guarantee of asylum. And so all these wonderful democratic parties with their firewall, they said, okay, let's give the Nazis what they want, because when you give Nazis what they want, they just shut the fuck up and go away. I mean, it's like when they gave the Sudetenland to Hitler, and you never heard from him again after that. He was just chill. Just, was painting badly. I mean, if you've ever... I don't know if anyone's ever actually looked at Hitler's paintings. He paints like fucking generative AI. His paintings look like AI before AI was even a grift. The perspective is fucked up. The image doesn't make sense in some way. You have all sorts of just weird shit going on. He was a horrible painter. But yeah, so they just gave the Nazis what they want and amended the Constitution, and since then, every once in a while, they just give the Nazis what they want again. And the Nazis, it turns out when you give Nazis what they want, they don't go away, they just keep demanding more. And so they keep giving them more. But the firewall's intact because instead of just voting along with them, they just introduce separate Nazi-ass bills that do basically the same thing the Nazis are asking for, and then they vote for them without the Nazis. This is the firewall, and everybody's so worried about the fucking firewall in Germany. Die Brandmauer stürzt ein. Brandmauer gibt's schon lange nicht mehr.
So now there was a protest against the AFD. They're getting ready to vote now, and there's 100,000 people there. And I'm like, wow. I thought, because I know people in Germany. I have friends in Germany.
Oh wow! I can't wait to. I'd love to know what friends he has in Germany. Does anyone know who this jabroni is?
They really are sick and tired of this immigration stuff. So where are these people coming from? And in the news report...
Well, these people are coming from is that most people actually hate the AfD. Somebody in the chat, they're going to cancel German... No, they're probably not going to.
Right up front, there's a dude in a blonde wig with eyeshadow saying, we just want to get along, can't we just be diverse? I'm like, that's the PSYOP.
What's the PSYOP? Like the wig? Is the makeup the PSYOP? Do you not understand that makeup? Everybody knows that makeup is makeup. You get that right.
He's talking about himself.
Obviously, watch fucking. I've heard about this jabroni Asmongold quite a few times. I've never actually watched him. All I've heard is that he just says horrible racist shit. But I mean, he's just sitting here like, look at him. He's just sitting here like a fucking goldfish. He's a racist goldfish.
So he wants to feel included, which, by the way, in America, you can do whatever you want, call yourself whatever you want.
Yeah, right. You can do whatever you want, call yourself whatever you want. I mean, unless of course you want to have a passport that actually reflects it, or you want to fucking use a public toilet or something like that. Yeah, everything's chill.
People really don't have an issue with that.
Yeah. Clearly, people don't have an issue with that, which is why you have all these like fucking genocidal laws against trans people.
But
generally,
they've just taken this and abused these people.
Abused what people? Who? What? Who's abused what people? People with blonde wigs have abused what? The people who are against the neo-Nazis?
Into their political agendas all over the world. And
what political agenda?
Of course, it sparked something here in the States. If you look, the Democrat Party, they're going to die on this hill. They're still like, oh no, LGBT.
No, they're not. They're fucking not. They already threw queer people under the fucking bus. They did that in the election. There was nobody stood up. They even like avoided having a single trans person on the stage at the convention, alongside banning anyone of Palestinian descent speaking at the convention. It was all just racist white sheriffs, and there were some like anti-choice Republicans and shit. Not a single queer person though.
I think that he's right about this part, that they're completely captured by identity politics.
Asmongold can speak.
They are. They're completely captured. I don't know if they're ever going to be able to get over it without like a total reformation.
They're taking away our rights because they know they can mobilize people.
What rights are they taking away of yours?
To do that. And then you can throw in Palestine and all.
Wait, so the PSYOP is they get you with the wig and the eyeshadow, and then the Democrats throw in Palestine, because the Democrats are just so wonderful. They just really care about Palestinians. We saw that for 15 months, how much they care about Palestinians. They want peace for Palestinians to rest in, you know. Don't you know? I mean, so that's the idea. Apparently, the idea was they used the queers in order to bring in the Palestinians. What
kinds of people?
Did you see the city council thing in Worcester, Massachusetts yesterday? That's gone viral.
Oh, funny! I was just talking about Worcester, Massachusetts this afternoon. Hello again, Badger. How you doing?
Yeah, which one's Jamie? Did you see it? Oh yeah. Pull this bitch up. There's a compilation of these people.
Well, now he's back to gold fishing over here.
Like absolutely freaking out. The best one's the compilation, if you can find the compilation. But it's all these LGBT people show up at this city council meeting to say there's like a trans genocide. It's one of those.
Well, I mean, there is this criminalization of trans people's existence. If you follow that to its logical consequences, yeah, that's going to be a bunch of people dying.
Dude, we're going to round up in concentration camps. Yeah.
I mean, fucking Arfuck was actually talking about, he called them wellness farms, where Asmongold is, I mean, just look at his fucking eyes too. He's a fucking goldfish. Maybe that's what the gold in his name is. Because he just basically imitates a goldfish.
Yeah, just start from the beginning. Give me.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, wonderful guy, Joe Rogan. It was such a mistake. It was such a mistake for Kamala Harris to not go on the Joe Rogan podcast, so he could talk about this wonderful, to his wonderful fash audience That was, that was the real mistake. Actually, it turns out he wasn't even going to have her if she wanted to be on.
Can you wrap up, please?
Yes, I can. If you say that you're afraid of Trump and that's why you don't want the city to be a safe space for trans people, you better prepare for trans people to make this a very unsafe space.
That's the energy we need.
Brother.
I'm shaking right now.
We saw this.
I don't want to be here.
I believe it.
I'm sorry, am I taking too long pleading for my life?
You remembered how many children I have and that 2 of them are trans.
There it is.
Yeah.
I speak as
There what is. Yeah, like, I mean, these, like, seriously. Let me just, like, these are, wow, I mean, anyone who watches this and is like, oh, yeah, this is hilarious. I mean, you're just a piece of shit is all. I mean, fucking, this is, wow.
the B and the T in the LGBT.
He's both.
I'm multiply disabled.
Yeah, that happens. Some people are both. That is possible, that you can be trans and bi, or trans and gay, or trans and a bunch of other things. Welcome to Set Theory.
Syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder that causes me immense physical pain. I'm on the autism spectrum, and I have narcolepsy, and I couldn't drive myself here, so I had to hide from my driver.
Oh, now they're gonna laugh about this, I'm sure.
That I was in drag, which is not an easy thing to do in drag.
I do not want to be here. It's
Whoa.
my day off.
Whoa.
I do not want to be
This
in
is the
your
one from
DMs.
earlier.
I do not want to be in your email inboxes. I do not want my creativity writing diss tracks like Kendrick. I don't want to spend an hour.
Wait, is he having a fucking gallstone here? Quick, throw Asmongold some flakes.
Applying glitter on my face so that you will hear and see me.
What?
I want you to listen to me.
What, go, fuck you, man. God, what pieces of shit.
No, that's enough.
So
It's like,
Well, yeah, that's so fucking funny. That's so fucking funny when you watch people, like, actually genuinely fucking scared for their lives and they're not you. Wow, I mean, it's really great that the algorithm boosts these people because they're an important contribution to the discourse. I mean, what fucking talking turds, all of them?
What were the overheard words by the Nazi child masturbating in the bathroom?
you made me put glitter on my face, you piece of shit. Because everyone knows when you go to court, you have to have glitter.
Yeah. Well, this wasn't court, though. That was City Hall. That's not the same thing. Yeah, no, don't worry. You don't need to explain, Badger. I think we all know who we're fucking laughing at. God, I mean, it's like just the most punchable motherfuckers.
And these people need hugs. They need love.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. Actually, all those things would be good. And you know what also these people need is maybe fucking creepy fucking groomery Nazi fuckers not trying to make it impossible for them to live. Maybe that would be nice. And fucking cowardly ass Democrats, from the way that they phrased this, the way some of these people were talking, it sounds like this is a city run by Democrats who have decided that they're just going to screw over trans people on their own just to get in good with Trump or some bullshit.
Pray for them. Yeah. The biggest way to psychologically manipulate people is, or there's three ways: old people, puppies, and children.
What the fuck does that have? There were no old people, there were no puppies, and there were no children.
And and I followed this. It started around 2012.
Where were the fucking puppies, dude? Where were the old people? What the fuck? One person mentioned that they have kids. Like, what does this have to do with anything?
Not coincidental when, you know about
Occupy Wall
Smith-Mundt,
Street.
the Smith-Mundt Act? So that's, there was a law that was put in since the Church Commission. You can't propagandize the American people.
Yeah, I mean, and this is real, and at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's just also not, because the thing is, the U.S. had a propaganda system before before they repealed that law. They've had a propaganda system the whole time. Like, entire books have been written analyzing how the propaganda system functions. It's not like we suddenly went from having, objective news to, like, a propaganda system when that law was repealed.
The Defense Department and others went to the government and said, well, like, we're on the internet now, we might accidentally, push some propaganda on people.
Yeah.
It started with bullying in schools. I know, because John Dvorak and I, we followed it on No Agenda. Started with bullying, then it was, we needed...
No Agenda, that's his thing. Okay, who the hell is No Agenda? The No Agenda show is Adam Curry and John Dvorak. Never actually heard. No Agenda is kind of feeling. It sounds like he kind of has an agenda, though, I have to say. Yeah, I'm getting a very distinct agendaful impression.
Anti-bullying laws, and we're literally going, like, what happened to sticks and stones will break my bone?
Like, maybe what happened, that was bullshit then.
Or punch bully in his nose. No. Then the teachers, and then we got hate speech laws, not actually laws, but...
Yeah, not actually laws. So, in other words, we don't have hate speech laws. Okay, you can always... It's always really something when you see, like, grown men who are freaking out about anti-bullying laws. Because those are the best people. Those are the guys that you just know... do not have a whole lot of restraining orders against them.
Hate speech punishments... And this kept building up until you...
It kept building up, and yet, I mean, if there were hate speech laws and hate speech punishments, you wouldn't have a fucking channel. YouTube wouldn't be monetizing this.
Parents, through the American Medical Association, the Pediatric Society, all of these different trade groups, that if you don't transition your child, that child will commit suicide.
I mean, that's literally a fact, though. It's not if you do not transition your child. It's if you do not, like, actually recognize and respect your child's gender and their identity, they have a much higher rate of fucking suicide. And actually, I mean, like, these guys should be happy. Because it turns out, the thing that they wanted, where there are laws to actually... deny just basic human dignity to trans youth, they've resulted in a whole lot of dead trans kids. I mean, they should be applauding themselves. Good job, I guess.
Right. And that is a horrible thing that they've done. Think about...
Why is that a horrible thing? Like, why is suicide prevention bad, actually?
Parents who may or may not one day wake up and go, what have I done? What have I done?
Well, I mean, I love how the idea is that theoretically they might one day wake up and say, what have they done? They can't point to parents actually regretting it. Because the parents who actually do the right thing by their kids, and, if they're trans, they let them, they respect that and they let them work out, what their identity is without imposing anything on them. And get them the help they need to explore it the way they want to, the way that it feels right to them. The idea is that they'll wake up one day and say, "Wow, I could have had a much lower monthly food expenditure if I just hadn't done that, because then my kid would be dead."
There was someone who was talking about this the other day. That this is the real problem: is that so many parents have committed to doing this to their children, and
it was really. Why is that a problem?
They cannot face.
They can't.
The reality of what they've done, and
the reality of what they're... Okay, tell us, what's the terrible reality of what they've done? I mean, because the kids actually are happy. The parents are happy. Everybody's happy, but Joe Rogan isn't happy. Joe Rogan, you know, the guy... see, I'm dating myself by saying this, because the name to me means Fear Factor. One of many really shitty reality shows of the late 90s to early 2000s. That's what I know him from, before he was like whatever the fuck this is.
So they're going to dig their heels
Well, they
in.
don't know what it is, right? I mean, like, I
Thankfully, the Nazi goldfish is here to tell us what it is.
that, like, as a parent, like, there are a lot of things that kids can't consent to and parents can't consent their kids into, even if they want to, and that's for everybody's best interest.
Yeah, well, for example...
That's it.
Like, can you give a fucking example?
Forever, and
And
they're
vote
gonna talk
Democrat.
about gender-affirming care.
Yeah. Yes.
But the thing is, that's a small percentage of people in the general population.
Wait a second, you were just talking about how many it was, now you're saying it's a small percentage of people, which, I mean, to be clear, it is. It is a very small percentage, and that's part of the problem. Because the thing is, the reason that these assholes can do this is that most of the people who are watching are unlikely to actually know any trans people. And so they can say whatever the fuck they want. These people will never actually get a reality check because statistically they're unlikely to meet one.
Thank God.
And thank God, but
I mean, now it's thank God there's so few. A second ago it was so many. Make up your fucking mind.
overrepresented in the fact that they make it their whole life, and so they're very loud. And very
Wow,
vocal.
isn't that so weird that people make who they are their whole life? Like, Joe Rogan would never make who he is his whole life, because, I mean, look at what he is. Look at who he is. You would not want to make that your whole life.
And then they become a political beach ball. I talk about beach
I heard
balls
you
at the
talk about
concert.
that with Bridget,
That's what
yeah.
it is. It's
Totally.
the political beach balls at a concert. They chuck them up in the air, so we always have something to fight about. So we're not.
Well, wait, but why do you have to fight about it? Couldn't we just say, okay, it's actually good that these people are able to live their lives and are, like, you know, happy and everything? Why do you have to fight that? Maybe you could just not.
Not paying attention to like the USAID stuff or a lot of the stuff.
I think that Joe's bringing up a really good point here.
Wait a second. So the idea is that the existence of trans people is distracting people from the USAID stuff. But, I mean, last I checked, it was Trump attacking both of those things. So, which is it?
Is that a lot of these identity politics issues are basically being put forward as a distraction technique from economic policy.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's why people are queer. Nobody was queer until there was a need to distract people from economic policy. The goldfish, I mean, that is a very clever goldfish. Queer people just exist to distract people from the fact that there is capitalism or something.
I think this is very true. I think it's always been true.
That's like really important.
Wait, I mean, and I love this idea. Like, he's talking about identity politics. What do you think that fucking Joe Rogan here is doing? And that the Jon Stewart look-alike he's talking to, like slagging off trans people is not identity politics.
And this is just a part of this intertangled web.
It's called Munchausen syndrome. It's Munchausen by proxy, actually.
Munchausen. Wow. Throw him some fish flakes.
If you're acting like that, you've convinced your kid that they have a disease.
That's not how that works. That literally is not how that works. And one of the things one of the differences there actually is that the children of parents who are doing Munchausen syndrome, not Manchausen, by proxy, is they're fucking miserable because their parents are literally making them sick a lot of the time, like physically making them ill so they have a reason to spend more time in the fucking hospital. Which is kind of the opposite of like trans kids whose parents respect them and whose peers aren't fucking Nazi goldfish pricks like this dickhead. They're not miserable, except to the extent that capitalism makes us all so. They are actually, they get on with their fucking lives.
But I know what it is. Like, I get it.
I can tell he gets it. He gets it.
Psyops that's been running our culture. I mean, I would say our government, but it's everything, right?
Culture. Yes.
So it's the government has established its hooks in us and put fear and law and rules.
Well, you're sitting. Well, he doesn't. He would never put fear into people. He's making people afraid of trans people.
And the more law and the more rules, the better, because the more likely you're going to break a few of them, and then you're going to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Wait, so he's saying, prison abolition then, right?
And they've got these fucking things everywhere. And
there isn't even a fucking civil rights act for LGBTQ people in the U.S. Like, literally, the reason that Trump is able to do a lot of this stuff so easily is that the Democrats, despite having multiple majorities over the past 20-odd years, have never once used those majorities in order to protect the basic civil rights of LGBTQ people. Like, literally, this is an example of where there aren't so many laws, which is exactly why he's able to get away with this bullshit.
It's just allowing them to run this mafia business. And there's a bunch of people that are reasonable.
I think that's true, is that it's very hard to speak out against this stuff. And
I can tell it's really hard because, I mean, all the monetization that you get, the money rolling in when you say all this bullshit.
Not anymore, but for a long time it was very hard to speak out against this stuff. And that's why, for example, like the trans kid stuff, I think that's the point. That was the bridge too far.
That had been going on for 40 fucking years. Like, the first trans kids to receive puberty blockers got them in the 1980s.
That really kind of, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
What camel?
And then afterwards, now you see people like having a huge reaction against it.
Well, yeah, no, you see some people having a huge reaction against it, which is apparently, that's not identity politics, you have to understand. Apparently that's not, that when you make your entire identity around slagging off marginalized people, that's not identity politics, you have to understand.
Massive reaction against it.
Educated people that have Stockholm syndrome. Like, they don't want to admit that even their people, their cherished heroes like Obama,
who the hell is he even talking about?
Was a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
No, he wasn't. Obama was not a part of this. Like, Obama tortured Chelsea Manning in a men's military prison for revealing crimes against humanity.
And all these people that you think of as progressive Democrats, they were...
Like, who even thinks of Obama as a progressive Democrat anymore? I mean, that luster came off him a very long time ago.
We're all a part of it.
So anyway, it overflooded the dam and broke. Yeah, I guess so. Remember when Nick Merckx got backlash when he spoke against this?
Yeah, you still get backlash when you speak about this. Like, you're living in a fucking bubble. Most people don't like... See, this is the thing. This is part of what the grift is. They convince their audiences of chuds that they're actually in the majority, even though everywhere they go, they find out that nobody really likes them. They're not in the majority, actually. And, I mean, they're talking about, oh, well, eventually somebody might regret this. Well, it's been a while. Nobody regrets it.
I do. And I think that radicalized a lot of people too when they saw that. They saw
what?
somebody like Nick Merckx who said, I don't want to have, gender ideology in like my kids' schools, and then he gets taken off of Call of Duty.
Well, that's what radicalized everyone when Nick Merckx got taken off of Call of Duty because he said transphobic shit.
Everybody hates Nick Merckx now.
Wait a second. So now you're saying everybody hates Nick Merckx now for saying those shitty things.
Everybody's dunking on Nick Merckx.
Well, it sounds like maybe you're on the wrong side of history then if everybody's dunking on the guy that you're standing.
And I think that a lot of people saw that and they were like, this is fucking ridiculous. And
which is it? Is it a lot of people thought it was ridiculous or everybody's fucking dunking on him?
Fact is that as soon as it was possible to express that opinion,
it has never been impossible to express that opinion.
It turns out everybody actually had Nick's opinion.
Wait, then diagram that shit for me, please. I thought everybody was dunking on him and everyone hated him, and now you're saying everybody actually agreed with him? Like, they were dunking on him for saying the fucked up shit that you're, like, standing him for. Like, which is it? See, other members of the right-wing bullshitosphere or other such jabronis are way better at this. Asmongold is not very good at this, is what I'm starting to see. I'd never watched him before. I think I will have to come back to him more often because he has an energy that seems eminently dunkable. But so, I mean, the thing is, you can't admit that everybody hated the guy and then pivot to, like, actually everybody agreed with him. Like, that's not how that works. Either everybody hated the guy or everybody agrees with him.
And it's a super majority opinion that the public has.
But it isn't. It absolutely isn't.
And so the only way that this stuff was able to, like, flourish and grow was when it was being protected ideologically.
But it was never protected ideologically. I mean, the wild thing about this is, the first time that there was ever, Jesus Christ, how many fucking YouTube tabs does he have? He has 1,774 YouTube notifications. You fucking check your notifications once in a while, Asmongold. Fucking goldfish. But, like, the minute there was any actual, like, anyone would actually stand in defense of trans rights or anything like that, suddenly you had dickheads like this being like, we're being silenced on every major fucking media outlet. Like, I mean, this is just such nonsense. It's like, I mean, it is a lot like how, like, rich white South Africans will pretend to be, like, oppressed now, because rather than controlling everything, now they control only most things.
Completely. Supermajority? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's bullshit. Okay.
LGBT brainwashing? Uh-oh.
Our president is very smart. He's...
Okay. So we could keep going. I've got Joe Rogan with Mike Rowe, the guy who wants there to be more workplace injuries. The fucking CEO who, like, runs around on television talking about how actually, like, working class people shouldn't be so safe and shouldn't, like, have lives. Or we could look at Graham Linehan. What's everybody think, chat? Or we've got Muppet. And I just noticed something when I was watching some of my VOD the other day. Apparently, when I have the OBS window open, and that is what I'm focused on, the animations end up getting extremely choppy. So I did not realize that was happening on your end. So, sorry about that. I will not be focused on that window when I do introductions in the future. I think we're going to look at some left-wing code words and language. This is ProPublica documented this. I can't wait to find out how left-wingers talk.
Hi, I'm Katie Sullivan. I'm just a normal American woman. But
Well, yeah, like all attorneys general are. She's just
left, that makes me a cisgendered, ethno-imperialist, birthing person with pronouns she, her.
Wow. Wow, she's got us. She fucking got us. We're an like, I've never heard the word ethno-imperialist. Ethno-nationalist, yes. And I have a feeling she probably is, working with the fucking Heritage Foundation.
Words like that are quite a mouthful, and it's one America needs to spit out before we choke on it.
Yeah, it's time that Americans stopped talking about ethno-imperialism.
In the eyes of many in the world, this every 4-year ceremony we accept as normal is nothing less than a miracle.
In America, we understand that a nation is only living as long as it is striving.
Only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. This great nation will endure.
Well, I mean, this feels actually like something... Caleb Maupin would actually do this as an intro if he had production values.
Has endured, will revive, and will prosper.
Whether we go forward together with courage or turn back to policies that weakened our economy, diminished our leadership in the world, America's future will be in your hands.
It's the presidential transition project. They want Donald Trump to transition. Maybe the monsters in the attic, chat. We're gonna see some monsters in attics.
Are your children afraid of monsters in the attic or under the bed? Yeah, they are.
Well, this is such normal delivery. These are not at all body snatchers.
Have been, but we always tell them that they do not exist.
Today we have news. There are monsters in Uncle Sam's attic.
It's the words, phrases,
Like they're giving Uncanny Valley salad dressing ad.
that are used, which may look like one thing, but absolutely mean another. And it is scary.
During this training, we will identify the problem, discuss examples from our time in the federal government, as well as the 5 cross-cutting principles of the current administration. We will teach you how to unwind the words and phrases that have been so artfully layered into every document in the federal government.
And we will do it with all of the screen presence of a maple tree.
You can do this in any role at any level of seniority. This training will prepare you to make changes.
Like, the Heritage Foundation has shitloads of money. How are they filming it so badly? This is like just barely better than Caleb Maupin grade filming.
The left continually pivots and assaults definitions and phrases. They twist words and phrases to support subconscious acceptance of a philosophy that was rejected or is against the grain of human existence, like
A philosophy that is against the grain of human existence.
What is a woman? Perhaps the most effective tool the left wields is their ability to engage in constant subliminal advertising.
Constant subliminal advertising.
Through their narrative, words, and phrases. Marxism became socialism.
What?
Then democratic socialism.
Those are like different things. Like literally each of those are different things though. We're not getting off to a very good start with our left-wing code words.
And is now represented by the terms social justice and equity.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because, I mean, if there's one thing you can be sure of, when you hear somebody talking about social justice and equity, they are going to have a thoroughly thought out materialist analysis of the conjuncture.
This is perhaps the most scary of all.
Like, I mean, what gets me about this is that it means that chuds would not recognize, like, if this is what they're telling them communism is, chuds would not recognize communists if we, like, bit them on their nose.
Katie, what brings to mind is the quote, "He who controls the language rules the world." It's attributed to Joseph Stalin and other
Let me see. He who controls the language controls the world. Yeah, it is actually attributed to all sorts of people.
parents. George Orwell stated, "He who controls language controls culture." Even more.
And I don't think he did. Yeah, this quote is attributed to a former pastor and consultant named Dennis Peacock. Yeah, no, the thing that Orwell said, actually, I mean, he had one of his characters in 1984 say it, was he who controls the past controls the future. You know, talking about rewriting history, like these people like to do.
Hitler and others lived by the creed. If you repeat a lie often enough, people will believe it. Without doubt, it's true. Language is a powerful and often controlling tool.
Career bureaucrats and the left are also using language to change culture and gain more and more authority, thereby upsetting the balance of power envisioned by our founding fathers.
Well, the balance of power being a handful of rich white guys run everything.
This, in essence, weaponized language against the American people.
Like, these people, the whole, all the money they have, and what they come up with, the way that this feels like a fucking 3 a.m. infomercial for the Floby.
This training is vital to you as a political appointee. If there's one thing you take from this training, it is to know when you start your job as a political appointee, every single word.
Well, like, have they heard of color grading? Like, Chad, I admit I'm not great at color grading, but I know what it is.
Phrase and acronym must be vetted, and you must determine what implications every word has before publishing or moving forward with any official or internal document.
All right. So now that we have...
Fun fact, TERFs in Britain are bankrolled by the Heritage Foundation. There's not much that happens on the far right in Western Europe that isn't at least somewhat bankrolled by billionaires in the U.S.
We've identified the problem. Let's give the viewers a taste of what we saw in the Trump administration. Bethany...
Yeah, people had a taste of that.
And I were both part of a coordinated effort in the Trump administration focused on trying to take back hijacked language and definitions across the United States government. And
the suck cut.
At our engagements in the United Nations. From our experiences, we will teach you how to identify...
Like, I mean, that isn't a credential, though, because if anything, the Trump administration was bad at this. Because because Trump insists. Trump loves hearing the sound of his own voice. He doesn't give a shit if whether the things that he wants to accomplish would be better accomplished if he were a bit quiet about them. And the result is that, if anything, people actually tend to respond forcefully to it. I mean, just look at Gaza, for example. I mean, we have this situation where suddenly a lot of liberals care about Gaza. They didn't give a shit about Gaza when Gaza was being slaughtered. But now Trump is actually just talking about resuming the genocide, which is not at all what's actually happening on the ground. If anything, I have to wonder, I mean, if the idea is to distract from the fact that the genocide has just moved over to the West Bank, because that is what's happened. That is where things are really bad right now. Gaza, I mean, things are horrible in Gaza, but they are actually kind of very, very slowly improving. But the thing is, he goes right out and just says the stuff, and then people freak out because, I mean, what he's saying is horrible. So, if anything, he's not good at this. Like,
The left's progressive language, scrutinize career staff compositions for dangerous language, and how to combat their manipulative efforts, ensuring clarity of definition and conservative intention. Bethany and I are going to give you some examples of what we mean by this need to always ensure clarity. But in no way are we able to foresee the future. And
wow, you got me there. I was sure that they could foresee the future.
Anticipate how the progressive left will continue to co-opt even more words and definitions. We can tell you the words and phrases being used today, but by the time you enter the administration, these examples may be obsolete. This will help you spot crucial issue areas to pay close attention to.
Like, did anyone think of the fact that these outfits that they have actually kind of cause them to blend into the fucking background a bit? Like that wall, you know, the curtain dress on the right. Like, I can't get over how shit these production values are.
Do not know what they will be calling men and women by the time you begin your tenure.
No, they're still calling men and women men and women.
The left is trying to dismantle America.
I mean, not a bad idea.
And rebuild it in their own image by using the art of deception, and words and definitions are their weapon of choice.
The art of deception.
Remember,
a bit of projection there.
Change culture. Bethany, with your extensive...
I mean, I love this because they're literally just saying what they're trying to do. But they're claiming that whatever they think the left is, they probably think like fucking Hakeem Jeffries is the left, is doing it.
With both domestic and international policy issues, and in light of your role in leadership positions at USAID, can you walk us through some examples of how the left uses words, weaponizes really, words and definitions? And if you could do that in a context of the cross-cutting issues that are identified in the mandate for leadership.
Which is, mandate for leadership is this thing that fucking the Heritage Foundation puts out every presidential election year. It is their wish list of shit they want a Republican to do if they get in, or a Democrat to do if they get in. Because the Heritage Foundation actually is not picky in that regard. They kind of prefer Republicans, but they know that Democrats aren't going to leave them empty-handed.
And really, as we understand, the cross-cutting issues were identified because they are the pillars of the Biden administration. And so they've been layered into virtually every document in the federal government. If you could walk us through some of those examples, I think it would be incredibly.
This has like zero. The riz on this is negative. It is actually hard. Like it is disengaging.
Helpful.
I'd be happy to. Absolutely. The 5 topic areas for today's discussion are centered on women, children, and family, environment, human rights and border security, the gender cult, and equity.
Ooh, the gender cult.
First topic, women, children, and family. I worked on international issues and very closely followed the language presented at the United Nations. And I saw up close and personal how this indeed is true. Language
What is true?
is used to control culture. I'll never forget a conversation I had with the chief of staff at USAID.
This is such a natural conversation the two of them are having. This is just, when you get together in a room full of, like, fucking Americana merch, like there's a little fucking toy White House sitting next to them, and you just have a long conversation about the cross-cutting issues.
We are trying to provide alternative language for the highly controversial phrase comprehensive sexuality education, or CSE.
Yes, okay. Yeah, because they don't want to give sex education. They actually want there to be AIDS. They want there to be more AIDS. They want, and lots of unplanned pregnancies and stuff.
Which, at the United Nations, had come to mean not just typical sex education, but
what is typical sex education?
Instead have been morphed into teaching and normalizing sex at very early ages.
Wait, you didn't think that sex was normal before? How did you think you got here, Miss? Like, motherfucker, look at how many people there are on this planet. Sex already is normal. Sex has been normal.
Even as young as preschool. And for girls who became pregnant, that abortion was a preferable method of birth.
Well, yes, actually, when, young girls get pregnant, first of all, let's just remember the word for that is they got raped. And second of all, they are the most likely to die in fucking childbirth. So yes, it is preferable. It is the safest option in that situation.
Back to the conversation with the chief of staff.
And it's really interesting that they're so freaked out about the fact that there is, what they're talking about, they say as young as preschool. Normalizing sex as young as preschool. What they're talking about is giving kids the language they need to know about the parts of their bodies in case somebody tries to fucking groom them. And I ask you, chat, when you hear somebody who really wants to make it easier to manipulate little kids into sexual abuse, do you think this person means well?
He suggested several alternatives, but each time I told him that, unfortunately, his recommended edit was also interpreted as CSE.
Well, yes, because, that's what's needed.
Frustrated, he vented. They have literally co-opted the English language.
Who's they?
And it was at that moment that I realized that the progressive left is controlling the language, redefining definitions, and by
When did we redefine definitions?
doing so, are ruling the world.
We're ruling the world. See, this is the great thing. This is, it's like you listen, when you listen to comrades, the conversation that we're having amongst revolutionaries and queer people and other people, it's like, fuck, the planet's dying on us and it's not clear whether we're going to manage to actually stop it. And fucking Nazis are, having entirely too good a time. And all sorts of fucked up shit. Then you listen to these pricks, and it's like, yeah, the left rules the world. It's like...
On a positive note, despite all the angst...
Then why do you motherfuckers have all the money?
We did succeed on that negotiation. DevEx published an article with the headline, "No mention of reproductive rights in declarations out of G7 development ministerial."
Wow, that's such a wonderful victory. Remember, literally, her example of why it would be bad to mention reproductive rights is that little girls who get raped would be able to get a termination so that they wouldn't die in childbirth. I mean, so yeah, well, give them a hand. Wonderful people.
You can read more about this in the course materials section.
And remember, she is ex-USAID. So when we talk about USAID, this is kind of some of the shit that USAID gets up to. A lot of the time, what it does is, like at the UN, they strive to water down any discussion of like development in the global south, so that it doesn't include things the US doesn't want, like say an increased state role in the economy in order to protect the economy from US competition and shit like that.
Now, let's talk about the word abortion. The left got very creative years ago and started using different words to make abortion sound...
Wow, the left invented synonyms.
a little less like murder. For example, sexual and reproductive health.
That isn't a word for abortion, though. That literally is not that thing. It's included in there, but it also, it's like fucking STDs and stuff like that. So it sounds a little bit like you want people to be getting STDs.
Reproductive rights. Sexual and reproductive health services.
Yeah, none of these things literally mean abortion. They all include it.
Reproductive health services, sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights.
Yeah, all of these things include way more than just abortion, though.
Sexual and reproductive health and rights. All of these include abortion.
Yeah, they include. That's not the same thing as being. See, I mean, if you're going to be talking about how people fuck around with definitions, maybe you could be a little bit more honest with your definitions.
For years, we knew that the terms above that I just mentioned had been used and that they were code for abortion.
They're not code for abortion. As you just said, that is just one thing that they include. They're code for, like, maybe helping people not get VD.
The left and the career bureaucrats at state and USAID told us, oh, no, no, no. But then when I was negotiating with Canada for the G7 Development Ministerial, I said, well, can we just use these terms and add that does not include abortion? And their response was telling.
Yeah, well, what, you mean the response was, fuck you, that is actually a very important part of sexual and reproductive health, and denying it actually kills people?
Said, but it does include abortion.
Well, wait, is she saying she didn't know that? Es tracta dels del linguaggio de l'esquerra, tal com és vist per uns fascistes. This is the left-wing code words, and she apparently thinks it's some big gotcha that these things include abortion. Like, maybe if you didn't know that, it's a little bit, you shouldn't be in the conversation because you don't know what it's about.
Even with that admission, I had a...
It's not an admission. It's just what the fucking words mean. You didn't know that?
Convincing political appointees that these terms were co-opted.
They're not co-opted. Co-opted is when the term already exists. And, I mean, you don't really co-opt a term so much. You co-opt people, you co-opt organizations. But the term, the people who came up with the term in the first place also advocate for abortion rights. It isn't like this term meant something different and then people put abortion all over it.
Another example hits closer to home and highlights how imperative it is for political appointees to ensure definitions are correct and explicitly followed. 3 days after President Trump took office on January 20th, 2017, he issued a presidential memorandum regarding the Mexico City policy. This became
the global gag rule.
known as the Protecting Life and Global Health Assistance Policy, or the expanded Mexico City policy.
With the global gag rule.
When I arrived at USAID in June 2017, I was the first political appointee in a bureau outside the front office and the 6th political appointee in the building. Despite President Trump issuing a presidential memorandum at the very onset of his administration to immediately change course and to protect life,
But well, except for the lives of anyone who's pregnant.
even months later, his guidance was ignored.
Oh, good. It should have been ignored. I'm glad to hear it was
I
ignored.
remember hearing careers refer to this policy and even seeing documents that referred to it as the global gag order.
Well, that's because that's what it is.
I immediately told the career staff that we do not refer to it as the global gag order.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you don't refer to it, but the thing is, it's what it is. It's what everyone knows it as.
Instead, appropriately as the Protecting Life and Global Health Assistance policy.
But that's not what it is.
To some, it may seem inconsequential.
Well, I mean, no, it just mostly sounds dishonest. Like, because you're not protecting life and you're actually refusing any health assistance globally.
But it actually was completely undermining the president and the American people who had elected President Trump.
Well, no.
So opposed to this policy change, the left actually started a new organization and an international movement called She Decides.
Yeah, because actually, what she's calling the left, actually, let me just be very clear. I'm sure, chat, you probably realize this already. It's just everybody who isn't a fucking reactionary.
Which invited NGOs and other foreign governments to join and actively promote abortion services and advocacy, essentially joining together to try to counter what the Trump administration was doing to protect life.
To protect life, shut up.
Language matters. Bethany, it's incredible.
Well, I mean, it's funny because the first example she comes up with is an example where people are using a term to refer to a law, to an order that specifically says that the U.S. will not provide any assistance to any organization that even makes it clear that abortion is an option. And so the people who were applying it were using a term that accurately describes what it does, and they're calling it the global gag order. And so she insisted that they call it something that is just a lie.
Incredible how the left is able to make killing children and babies
Since when do you give a fuck about that?
a pro movement. I mean, their narrative is just incredible and so opposite of what the reality of the situation is. We see that also with environment, right? So I remember when I was in school, in elementary school, we were taught that we were all going to be frozen over by an ice age. And
When the fuck where did she go to elementary school that she was taught that nonsense?
of course, this was terrifying.
I mean, like, she looks to be not much older than me, so I really kind of doubt that, because global warming was definitely a thing. I mean, I'm guessing she was in primary school in, the 70s, early 80s? Global warming was definitely a thing, so if somebody was telling her that there was going to be a fucking global ice age, they were just fucking lying to her.
And then in the 80s, it was acid rain. We were all going to die from the acid rain.
Yeah, and actually, at this point, the acid rain is such a problem. Actually, rain is no longer potable. There is no potable rainwater in the world.
And then it moved to global warming, which I think...
It didn't move to it. That was just another thing that people were talking about.
You know, most of the people watching this tape will remember that was during the Obama administration.
No, it wasn't. It was not during the Obama administration. We were that was something that was being talked about in the 1990s.
Yes. And then science comes along and disproves the global warming theory in large
No, it doesn't.
part. And we have one of the most frigid winters ever known.
Yeah, no, that is entirely predicted by the science that has backed up the fucking global warming. It's worth noting.
And then the next thing you know, they're calling it climate change.
No, this is just not, this chronology is just fucking buck wild.
Now, I always understood that climate change meant seasons.
No, that's not what... Then you don't know what climate is. Climate does not change with the seasons. You have different seasons depending on what kind of climate you're living in. Like, if you did not understand that climate change and seasons are different things, then you're just fucking ignorant.
Climate does change all the time.
No, it doesn't.
But of course, that's not what's meant by the left.
No, I mean, it's not what's meant by climate. She doesn't know the difference between weather and climate. At least she here is pretending not to understand the difference between weather and climate.
What do you think about all of about the left's words and definitions in the environment?
It's a great point, Katie. They don't stop. Climate change allegedly is everywhere.
Well, yes, it is. It's affecting the entire fucking planet.
And if the American people elect a conservative president, his administration will have to eradicate climate change references from absolutely everywhere.
See, and one of the funny things about this is, like, I mean, funny in not so much a ha-ha, but in such a, these motherfuckers have known this for way longer than it's been led on to us sort of thing. The Pentagon... We know from leaked and declassified documents that as early as the 1990s, the Pentagon was talking about a climate scenario much like the one we're facing right now, and talking about it in terms of how it was going to mean all sorts of wars over water resources because water would become scarce, and mass migrations due to like places becoming uninhabitable and stuff like that. And yeah, so one of the things, so like the Pentagon isn't doing this because they care about the environment. If they cared about the environment, if they actually wanted to solve the problem, they would shut themselves down, because the Pentagon is one of the big drivers. Like, in terms of individual institutions responsible for climate change, the Pentagon massively punches above its weight. If they actually cared about stopping this stuff, they would shut themselves down. They don't. But they knew that it was going to destabilize things, and they have people whose entire job is to figure out what new sources of instability there might be and what to do about it.
And according to our intelligence community, the #1 threat facing our country today is, drumroll, climate change.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Again, these are people who are not known as environmentalists, who are not recommending any changes in any kind of environmental policy, whose job is to look for sources of instability and possible threats to the regime, and this is obviously one of them.
Not Russia, not China, not AI, climate change. This shows how the federal government is all in on this issue. And climate change activists wield a lot of power.
No, yeah, that's why, like, literally the entire political class refuses to do the bare minimum the IPCC says is needed to ensure the long-term inhabitability of the planet.
This is an issue to pay attention to, as it has infiltrated every part of the federal government. Now, when I think of climate change, I immediately think of population control, don't you?
Well, it's funny because when the Pentagon thinks about climate change and what to do about it, and the fucking CIA thinks about climate change and what to do about it, what they are talking about is population control, specifically cracking down on the population so that, you know, the ruling class can stay in charge when there are food shortages and things like that. And locking down the borders so that climate refugees can't get in. And it's funny because these are exactly the sort of things that these motherfuckers always propose. And it just happens to be the stuff that the Democrats also propose. But they're going to pretend but they want to tell, like, their dickhead talking heads that the reason that they're proposing it is not the actual reason. I mean, see, this tells you, like, they're political. This is for political appointees, mind you. This is for political appointees in the federal government, and they're talking to them like the biggest fucking rubes out there. That is what is remarkable, because this is actually what they're revealing is they assume that the people who are being appointed to these things do not know shit about anything. Because it's a totally different, because this conversation is totally different if you're directing it at people who know what the deal is, but you want to make sure they understand how to lie about it. This is like directed at people who do not know what the deal is, but have to somehow be like explained so that they can so that they can exist in a situation where everyone knows that's the deal, but they're not allowed to say it. That is what is wild about this. I mean, this is written for just complete rubes. But it is time to wrap it up for tonight. Thank you to everyone who's joined in. It's always wonderful to see you. I hope you enjoyed the stream. And remember, if you do not want a boiling oil geyser, wait 10 minutes before putting, or 15 minutes, or maybe even more before putting ice cubes into oil that you've just been frying potatoes in. You will thank me. Because nobody wants a boiling oil geyser. I can tell you this, having just seen one. Have a good night, and I will be back tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time.